I don't consider myself a master mechanic by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I've been known to round out a screw head by rotating it only once. But the car was running rough, so I had to chip away at the problem to see what it might be. Spark plugs were relatively easy to get to and could be a quick fix before delving any deeper. Having just gotten the proper tools for removing and replacing them, it was time to get to work. Now, maybe I shouldn't break my hand patting myself on the back for changing 8 spark plugs, but I gave myself a free pass for doing so since it was my first time. This was recorded a little over 2 years ago, and we take a look back. Well, good afternoon, John O'Flaherty, B3 Burner. I said I'd be back tomorrow, and tomorrow is now today. So we've got plenty of daylight now, so I managed to take the ratchet, the socket extension and the socket out of their packaging, and we now have them hooked up to each other. Now we just have to remove the ignition wire from the top of the spark plug. We'll start with spark plug number 1 on the left side. I know there's a firing order, and they're probably named after their cylinders, but for purposes of making it easy on me, we'll just say from the front to back, L1, L2, L3, L4, and then on that side, R1, R2, R3, R4. So we're starting on the front left side. So let's get over to that. Well, this is an experiment in light exposure and focus in some very high contrast, light dark situations. So I don't know how this is going to work. Case being half my, I'd say 3/4 of my work surface is in shadow. And the other remaining 1/4 is in sunlight. That's going to make it tough on the camera, but we'll do our best. So, given this particular situation, we're going to start by pulling off this ignition wire and attempting to remove the spark plug. I should be beyond attempting at this point. Let's see if I can get it underneath. And it all starts with getting the ignition wires. I was advised to pull one ignition wire at a time so I do not get them mixed up. And off from the outset, the first thing we're looking for is anything unusual. Oil up around where the ignition wire meets the spark plug is not a good sign. And for the most part, it's a little grimy but not oily, so I'm not too concerned as of yet. Time will tell. So let's see what we get here. These are torqued a little bit harder than I thought. Well, there we go. See where we're at. Be real careful, I guess. Don't want to lose it. Wow. So that's not good. Now, as long as it's grimy oil and not oily oil, if that makes any sense. So I could hand loosen it. I'm a little off. Okay, hold on. Now, like I said, I've never done this before. Actually, I have, but it was a very long time ago. And I was using my dad's tools. And all right. So, let's look at the situation here. See what we got. Well, my consensus on this is that it looks awfully oily and grimy in the threads. Let me turn the color temperature down a little bit. Look at that. Real grimy on the threads. And very ashen and dry at the prong. Now this leads me to believe whether it was running hot, and was almost too lean, which surprises me given the number of months that the car was running rich. So that's a bit of a surprise. The oil and the grease on the thread is a little bit concerning. It means there's oil in places where it really doesn't belong, but that's what happens. At least this part doesn't look too bad. So here's the spark plug gapper. It tends to work better when it's outside the package. And so we have a point of reference. Let's see what the gap was set at with the old spark plug that I've taken out of the car. I'm going to stick it in here, and I'm going to slide it down until it fits inside. All right. And the first point that it gets under before it can't go any further is about 0.43 or 43 thousandths. And that seems awfully spread apart. 42 thousandths? Yeah, you're not going to be able to read this. It's not a macro lens. Maybe. Hold on. Ah, you can read that. See, the center of the prong is at 42 thousandths. That's the point where it was real loose, and it finally tightened to the point where I couldn't get it to go anymore. Right? It seems to lock up there. Okay, that's, whoa. Now, now it's stuck. See, this is good practice because you never want to bend and adjust points by bending this up and down in the feeler gauge part. Instead, you're using the hole. You take it and you bend it away. And it's ever so slight, but what you're doing is you're anchoring the back of the hole on the elbow, the 90-degree turn of the prong, and using that to bend it up so that you're not putting any pressure on the electrode below. You cannot use the hole to close the gap. For that, you turn it upside down about 5 or 6 inches above the concrete and drop it, and close the prong gradually until it is at 35 thousandths. So let's check where we're at. And it looks like right now we're just about slightly less than. It starts to tighten up around 31, 32. Maybe you could stand to open it up a little further, but you see what I mean. So now that I've practiced up gapping and down gapping the old spark plug, so if I screw it up or break anything, at least I'm practicing on the old and not the new. It's time to try my hand at the new ones. Take them out of the box. And remember, these do not have gap protector in them. So let's be real careful. So here's our gap. See if we can get that a little closer. I know I'm going to lose battery power in a second. I've got problems with my phone. We're starting to cut out at 10% again. Are these pre-gapped at 35 thousandths like it said on the package? Whoop. Slide it around. I don't know. I don't think so. That's 20. That's 30. 35. Maybe that left edge is gapped at 35. Wow. Now, what do you consider gapped? Do you pull until it's like so tight you can't go any further? In which case, look, I'm almost getting it to 40. Yeah, seems like the more I play with it, the the further along it's going. So it may be time to do the old drop it on a hard surface. So watch what I'm going to do. Just from a few inches, go down on a hard surface, and let's see if that fixed the problem. Shit, now it's probably gapped at 25. Well, let's see, there's 30. Oh no. Now it's definitely worse. Well, you get the idea, and I'll let you know when we get to 35. Well, so the good news is, after dropping the darn thing on the ground, you eventually get it gapped to exactly 35 thousandths of an inch. And once you get it there, you don't mess with it. So, now that everything is where we want it, we carefully insert our new spark plug into the cable, or the socket wrench, and I'm trying to find the hole. Greasy old hole. I don't know if I should have cleaned down there or what, but just in case. Oh, I gotta turn this to on. Oh, oh no, that's right. Rule number 1. I almost forgot. Rule number 1. You always hand tighten these first, so that you don't cross thread it or thread it off angle. You see, your hand can detect off threading more sensitively than you can when you're grabbing onto the ratchet. So you only want to use the ratchet after you know it's threaded straight. So I'm hand tightening it. And once I've hand tightened it to the point where by hand it's snug, then what I want to do is stop, then put the ratchet on, and then don't turn it more. Then 90 degrees. And that's all you want. You're not trying to cram that thing in there at 1,100 foot-pounds of torque. You'll break it, you'll never get it out. Best case scenario, you'll rip the threads on the spark plug. Worst case scenario, you'll rip the female threads on the intake manifold. You don't want to do that, I assure you. That's money that's better spent elsewhere. Final stage, put the spark plug wire back over the plug. And here's the hard part. It was hard to pull off. It's going to be even harder to put back on. You want to make sure that the covering of the ignition plug goes all the way to the copper hexagon of the spark plug, and that no white ceramic is exposed and visible. Oh, I'm pushing and I'm pushing, and gosh darn it, I'm not having very good luck. Unless, wait a minute, there's some white exposed on the other ones. Let me try both hands. That might be the furthest I can get it in. Yeah. That may be it. Yeah, so as to not waste a lot of time, we'll just call that good for now. And we got 7 more to do. And then of course what happens is we start the car and see if it purrs like a kitten or goes chitty chitty bang bang, and then we know whether we did a good job or not. Okay, so now that we've done the first spark plug, L1 I'll call it, the frontmost one on the left, but the object of the game is to just do the other 7 and the same exact way. And when you get good at it, you know, there's no fanfare and you don't break your hand patting yourself on the back, you just do it and get it done. You know, for an experienced mechanic, this would be a nothing. For me, it's a cause for celebration. So what I'm going to try to do is move my way through the other 7 as quick as possible before it gets dark. It's 3:49 right now, so I have about an hour and a half worth of daylight. So I'm probably not going to do any more filming between now and then, but I will film the finished product. Well, okay, it took a while and it's dark now, but we got all 8 spark plugs changed, and it got faster as we went on. First spark plug took like 30 minutes, and then each one got successively quicker. Now the question is, will the old ignition wires suffice? Was it gapped properly? Did I screw them back in straight, or are they crooked? Did I push the ignition plugs back on top of the spark plugs correctly? And finally, will it make a difference? At worst, it should be the same as it was before I did anything. Yeah, unless I messed it up, in which case it might run a little worse because I didn't install them properly. At best, maybe it makes an improvement. Maybe we've solved 20 or 30% of the problem. At least that would be a good start. So, speaking of start, I guess now would be the time to start it up and see how it runs. So let's do that. I'll tell you what, it seems to start stronger. Its idle's a little slow still when it's cold. But that's sort of been the problem for Jump Street, and something else that needs to be corrected. Smooth the idle by maybe enriching the mixture, all while not having raised the idle too high. So, I don't know, we won't know until we drive it around. You know, the exhaust does not smell lean when it's cold. It only smells lean when it's warmed up and I put it under load. Certainly don't want it too rich. Maybe a little richer than it was, and the idle a little smoother. It just feels like it's a little puttish when it's cold. So we will have to make that correction. So spark plugs alone don't change everything on a car, but at least it's a start. And if I let it idle till it warmed up, who knows how much smoother it would have smoothed out. But then it'd probably run leaner, which also seems to be another problem. So you trade one problem or gain for another loss. It's a compromise until you get it all worked out. So a couple plans of attack. 1, clean my tools. Number 2, pack all the old spark plugs in the boxes, clean the feeler gauge, and consensus on the condition of each plug and what that means. Some were oilier and smelled more like gasoline oil than others. Some of them smelled like nothing and looked more, I guess, ashy, for lack of a better word. So anyway, that kind of wraps up the evening. It's just about dark now. There we go. We'll wrap it up.